The final battle between Ichigo and Yhwach is probably one of the most mysterious fights in Bleach, if not the only one packed with so many hidden events and secrets. It reflects how the manga truly ended, in a rushed manner. For example, how was Yuri able to shoot an arrow at Yhwach without him noticing, thereby sealing his abilities and leading to his defeat? And how did Aizen's illusion manage to affect Yhwach? Not to mention Ichigo's Bankai. What exactly was its power? Unfortunately, Yhwach broke it before we could see it in action. According to him, he destroyed it in the future. And this means that Ichigo, after struggling to reach this Bankai and finally understanding the truth behind his powers and how they work, had it shattered so easily. And this raises a big question. How could Ichigo's Bankai be repaired? Especially in such a dire situation where nearly all parties in the war had already lost. Even the method used by Nimaya to forge Bankai was no longer an option, since he had sacrificed himself to allow Shinjimaru to unleash her Bankai. The bigger problem was that Orihime, who possesses one of the strongest abilities in the story, specializing in healing and rejecting events, was enabled to reject the breaking of Ichigo's Bankai because it happened in the future. And just as all hope seemed lost, Tsukishima appeared and changed the game, enabling Orihime to repair the Bankai by manipulating Ichigo's past. And this is where things get a bit mysterious. How exactly did Tsukishima's ability bypass Yhwach's overwhelming power? And how did Orihime suddenly become capable of fixing the Bankai when just moments before she was completely hopeless? That's why guys, we're going to break all of this down in detail in this video. First, as I mentioned, these events, or rather the situation, had two key players, Tsukishima and Orihime. Without both of them, Ichigo wouldn't have been able to fix his Bankai. That's why we need to analyze each one of them separately. Tsukishima to me remains one of the most unique characters, not just in the Fullbringt arc, but in Bleach as a whole, both as a character and because of his ability, Book of the End. It's enough to say that Tsukishima's ability or role in the Fullbringt arc was as pivotal as Aizen's role in the Soul Society arc. The entire arc's plot revolved around his power to manipulate the past of people. Without that ability and how Koba used it, the Fullbringt arc wouldn't have even existed. What makes Tsukishima's ability even more terrifying, guys, it doesn't just affect people, it also works on objects. This makes him the backbone of the Fullbringt arc's events. And when Tsukishima appeared in the final arc alongside Ginjo and Giriko, I thought they might get their own significant role, similar to what happened in the novel Can't Fury Onward, where narrator expanded on their characters and gave them proper fights, but that didn't happen in the last chapters. I mean, some believe that their sudden appearance in the last chapters was just Koba's way of reminding us that the Fullbringt still exists. And this raises the big question, was their role limited just to helping fix Ichigo's Bankai, or did they have other unseen contributions before that event? I mean, hopefully guys, the fourth part of the anime adaptation will provide some answers. And now guys, let's get back to Tsukishima. As I mentioned, his ability works by cutting anything. This doesn't cause any physical damage, but instead inserts him in the past of that person or object. It's not just an addition to their memories, it's fully altered them, making it if Tsukishima had always been part of their lives. For example, if Tsukishima caught someone, their entire memory is rewritten to make it seem like he was always present in their life. And the victim won't just recognize him, they might even believe he was their best friend, a family member, or anything else that fits the narrative he wants them to believe. And this means their thoughts and behaviors will change based on these newly implanted memories, and eventually rewriting their past. And what's more dangerous, guys, Tsukishima's ability also works on non-living things. If he cuts an object or a place, he becomes part of its past, allowing him to know everything about it or even alter its history. And this is exactly what happened with Shinbun Sakura in the battlefield where he fought Byakuya. With just one slash, he inserted himself into their past and altered their nature. So, in my opinion, what Tsukishima did was create a version of the past that was completely outside the timelines where the sword had already been broken and where Yhwach's power had sealed Orihime's ability to restore it. So, by rewriting history in a way that removed those constraints, he allowed Orihime to fix the Bankai. So, Tsukishima created a past where Ichigo's Bankai was never broken. In other words, he established an alternative past that existed outside Yhwach's power. And because of this, Orihime was able to reject the events of the Bankai breaking, since there was now a past where it had never been shattered. And this allowed her to reject the events entirely and restore the Bankai using this newly created past. Because anyway guys, cannot reject something from nothing. There always needs to be a starting point in the past. For example, if Grimijo had originally never had an arm to begin with, then Orihime likely wouldn't have been able to restore it, because it never existed in the past. However, since his arm did exist at some point before being severed, Orihime was able to reject that event of its removal and return things to the state where his arm was still intact. The same logic applies to Minoli, whose body was partially destroyed. Orihime was able to restore her because Minoli originally had a complete body, and this is exactly how Tsukishima used his ability on Ichigo. He inserted a different past on where the Bankai was never broken, so that when Orihime activated her power, she would rely on that version of history to fix the Bankai. Of course, we should keep in mind guys that Orihime's power has limits. As I mentioned, the events must have already happened for her to reject it. Additionally guys, she can't restore spiritual energy or heal spiritual wounds in the traditional sense. Even if she could, it would require a significant amount of time, as mentioned in the novel. That's why in this situation, all Orihime could do was remove the events of the Bankai breaking. But one thing is clear, Tsukishima's ability guys proved to be incredibly powerful. Just imagine if he had inserted himself into Yhwach's past. We could have learned so many things through him. In fact, the mere fact that Tsukishima was able to grasp Yhwach's ability and use his own power to counter it is truly amazing thing. And like I said, I really hope we get to see more of Tsukishima and Ginjo in the fourth part of the anime. Not just their role in the final battle, but also a more detailed explanation of what exactly happened. Because as I said guys in the beginning of this video, that event seems to some fans and to me also a little bit rushed. It needs some explanation. I don't think Kobo will remove, for example, the events of Tsukishima using his ability to fix the Bankai, but at least it would be better to see some more context of how it happened. I would be happy, for example, to see a flashback of Ginjo and Tsukishima speaking about why and how they're gonna help Ichigo, and also some new scenes or new lines about how the end of the book ability countered Yhwach's power. Ending guys, let me know what you think about these events of the breaking of the Bankai and the role of Tsukishima and Orihime. Can we see more additions regarding them in the fourth part? Give me guys your opinions in the comments and see you guys in my next video.